So, on to the 6th level, which is in Wagon Wheel Gap, Colorado. And it's mountainous, as the real Wagon Wheel Gap is. As the name suggests, it is actually a gap in the mountains. But it doesn't have a Wikipedia entry, and so it's a little bit obscure. It has its tourist website here, and the railroad station is on the National Register of Historic Places. That was the application, which you can find online, just for the history of historic preservation's sake. There's the station on Google Earth. And the village is still there. I tried switching on the 3D buildings, but no luck. They don't have modeling for that. There's the town, or the village, as it were. The Denver-Rio Grande Western Railroad came in 1881, even though the town had been there since 1840. It was initially narrow gauge and was standard gauge in 1901. Then it became part of Southern Pacific, then Union Pacific. And now there's a company called San Luis and Rio Grande who run it under Iowa Pacific. So it's not a very high-class railway nowadays, but it is a railway. It still operates in theory. I don't know all the details of it, but I've noticed it's really overgrown, unfortunately. It doesn't necessarily mean it'll always be like that, but one possibility is they could try a tourist railway because of the station and so on. But back to the 19th century for the game. In the 19th century, it was all freight with American standards. All steam. So here I'm hauling ore and logs. I don't know how realistic that is. I think I was saying lumber in several of the other levels when really it was logs being carried. You don't actually carry lumber, proper lumber, at any point in Spinnaker trains because you're only bringing logs to sawmills. You're not bringing lumber to hardware stores or what have you. There you see, they keep mentioning payroll time. That's another expense they throw at you, sort of randomly. There might be a timer on it, but I don't know about that. It's not really a factor in the gameplay unless you're already in trouble. There's the logging camp again. Ore mine has a surplus of ore. Oh no. Means I'm doing really badly here. As I said, the levels get more difficult as you progress, and that's to be expected. Sometimes you have to prioritize the more demanding customers. You can see the new line to the next level is appearing up in the upper right there. Of course, as this game progresses, I'm having less and less to say. Just a matter of gameplay. Of course, interestingly, the passenger station isn't here, but actually there is no point in Spinnaker trains where you haul passengers. Everything is freight. Only freight. which basically reflects the rail industry from about the 1850s or so to the present, in that most of the traffic on American railroads has historically been freight. Most of the revenue has been from freight. So even though they had a lot of problems with falling passenger numbers in the mid-20th century, a bigger factor was overregulation by the ICC of their freight services. Once that was deregulated by the Staggers Rail Act, well, their business greatly improved, and in spite of the fact they don't haul passengers anymore, at least the freight railroads don't, they're doing quite well, actually, since that time. Basically, the 1980s is when they rebuilt. In the 1990s, they had their greatest successes, and now they're still plugging right along, even though the economy, of course, is not ideal. But the 19th century, people forget that in spite of all the passenger trains, the money was in freight. Public face of a business doesn't always reflect where the money is actually coming from. Like, for example, newspapers have always made more money from advertising than from subscriptions, and from the newsstand price. Something not everybody knows. Alright, screwed up my switching there. More on that in the next video. You'll see what I do there. Being out of practice and having to deal with this interface, which is somewhat confusing. One other way you can lose money in this game is if you crash the train, although I've never actually totaled it. Generally what it just means is you lose money, because you have to spend however many $100 fixing the train. If I'm not mistaken, refilling it with coal is actually much more expensive than crashing it. So, it isn't that much of a factor in the game. Overshot it again there. But that line out of town is almost complete, and I'm finally starting to make some headway on these deliveries here, which I'm sure is not a coincidence. Okay, to go to the next town, so that means I will drive out of town here, and I'll see you in the next video.